Hi everyone, my name is Igor, and now we'll be kicking off our webinar regarding the analytics and data tracking for progressive web apps. Here with me is my colleague Carolina. Probably you've seen her message from a chat. So in case if you have any questions, you can drop the message into the chat, and Carolina will pass it to me. And if we will have some spare time, I'll go through your questions and answer those. In case if we will not have time, probably you'll be able to drop us a message on marketing@ScandiWeb, and we'll send out answers to the frequently asked questions after the webinar. Otherwise, I'll repeat this message in the end of the webinar just in case. And I guess that we are good to go with the webinar itself, shall we? So let's go. Right. So our webinar topic is data tracking for e-commerce PWA. During this webinar, we'll speak about the PWA, some tips, tricks, and tweaks to your tracking setup. And we'll be focusing on the e-commerce PWA. However, probably most of the things that I'll be speaking about could apply to other types of PWA, and things we share in here will be closely related to ScandiPWA, which I'll talk about in a second. So, who we are. As I've mentioned previously, my name is Igor. I work at ScandiWeb. My position is Senior Digital Analytics Specialist. As a ScandiWeb, we are a pretty big team of more than 200 people in two different countries. We specialize in e-commerce, specifically in Magento, and almost, I guess more than a year ago, we started developing the progressive web app theme for the Magento, and now we've gathered some insights and learned some valuable questions regarding how working with the e-commerce PWA is different from what you've previously experienced. So our plan for today, I've divided our webinar in 6 sections. First is what is ScandiPWA. I'll speak about it, tell which technologies we are using there, etc., etc. Then we will go through the technology stack that we are using, which will be important for the understanding the ScandiPWA, and is likely to be applicable to other PWAs that you could be working with. Then we gradually will go to the data tracking part. We'll start with the technology specifics that matter for us as marketing specialists for gathering correct data. We'll follow with our options on the table, what you can utilize to gather the data from the PWA. Further on, we will go through the particular issues that we've encountered while setting up data tracking setups. And of course, I'll share solutions for those issues with you. And then we will briefly discuss analysis caveats and insights that we gathered from PWA data so far. So, what is ScandiPWA? What, in one sentence, it's a single progressive web application with persistent cacheable GraphQL supporting backend. That's what developers told me. It's not very self-explanatory, and therefore I broke it up for you in smaller chunks. So let's go through them. So progressive web app. What it does is progressive web app reduces our dependency on servers, therefore making user experience more app alike. In order for a website to qualify for the PWA, it basically should have just two things. It should have a manifest. It's sort of a document that contains app data as images, names, icons, etc., etc., and service workers. Service workers as a script which runs in the background of your browser, like Safari or Google Chrome, and acts as a proxy between client and the server for for passing data between those. Single page applications improve website responsiveness and UX, and makes your website even more app alike. And in the core of the single page application lies the core principle of single page application is that when user interacts with the website, the page is not reloaded from server fully. It's dynamically updated. So for example, if you go from the home page to the category page, instead of loading the whole page, for example, menu items, etc., etc., we do not need to download those again from the server. We keep the existing menu and just update the body part of the page with the products. And GraphQL, we use it for more granular work with data, and GraphQL is a API query language for APIs, which gives you an opportunity to request just the data that you need for displaying your web pages, and it conveniently allows for requesting data from the multiple data source at once. So why do we have that technology stack? Let's start with progressive web app, as that's the topic of workshop. First of all, PWA allows you to have app-alike website for all platforms. Basically, what it means that instead of having the website, having iOS application and Android application, and maintaining and updating those, what you need is just one progressive web app, which can be deployed on whatever platform you wish. Additionally to that, progressive web app can go offline in browsers. That's a perk of the service workers. So when you load the regular page, and for example you've lost the signal, you'll get 504 error, which will say that the server took too long to respond, therefore page will not be loaded, and once you get back the signal you need to reload it once again. With PWA it's not the case. If you lost the signal once, service workers put all the requests on pause, and once you are back with the cellular connection or Wi-Fi, it continues to load the resources and page just as it would normally do. it will work well for some areas with low level of cellular network coverages, and should make both in theory and in practice web experience more pleasant. And third, it's more like a bonus. We have a smart caching. In essence, that means that we have more control over the caching algorithms, which in turn allow us for storing more data, caching data more intelligently. Therefore, we do rely on servers even less. And as we do not need to download as much data as we otherwise would, it increases the amount of data to be downloaded. Therefore, app becomes more snappier and saves you some traffic, which is again works well for the places where you do not have good internet connection. So why single page app? The main reason why we've decided to make the progressive web app as a single page app is that we sat down and we're thinking about this PWA, and as you could remember from the previous slide, the progressive web app works on all platforms. Therefore, if we are investing our resources and time into it, we were just thinking, why not to make it perfect and absolutely to simulate the native app behavior. And the second thing is client-side rendering. As the content will be dynamically updated on the page without page reloads, etc., which improves the overall user experience. Also, what it means is that as we are updating not the whole page, but just a fraction of it, again, we are requesting less data from server, thus saving you some your monthly subscription megabytes and improve user experience in areas where there is no good internet connection. And regarding GraphQL, it helps us with reducing the amount of data that we request from servers even further, because one of the features of GraphQL is that you get just the data you need in the exact form you need. So if you request, for example, product name and product ID, you'll get just the product name and product ID, no additional data, which again saves us some data transmitting and works well in the areas with low coverage. Second point, I'll trust developers with that. Developers say that it's convenient because with just one request, you can get all the data you need from the multiple sources. The drawback of GraphQL is that it cannot be hashed. As developers explained it to me, hashing means that when the application website communicates with server, server has an option to also cache some frequently asked requests. So instead of asking server provide me with the product ID and product name, we can just ask server to provide us data from hash and send the hash number, which again will save us some data. And the only issue with this hashing is that GraphQL does not support it natively. So you will need to do some workarounds in order to make it happen. So so all in all of those steps chase just one goal: to make the website look and work as fast as possible and be UX friendly. And if you add such progressive web app website to your home screen, it could be that you will not see any difference between the website and the real native Android or iOS apps. Yeah, the website, our webinar is about PWA tracking. So why I'm speaking about those GraphQL, single page application, etc. The thing is that all in all, whenever you'll be hearing about some progressive web app for e-commerce, you can be pretty sure that you will find almost the same technology stack that we are using. There could be some tweaks here and there, like which libraries are used for the front end, like we're using React, their Vue.js, etc. But all in all, if we are speaking about some PWA commerce solutions, it's likely that you will find the exact or almost exact stack of technologies used there. So we will cover all three of those, and I'll be pointing out where are some issues or caveats coming from, so you will know which one is relevant to your case. So specifics of these technologies that matter for us analysts. Right, so there basically are 5 of those. First of all, it's JavaScript based front end. Second is client-side rendering, when page is rendered on the client side instead of server. Third one is extensive caching. Our developers try to cache as much as they can. Third one is asynchronous data loading. And third one, and the last one, fifth, is that there is no reloads. So, which are single page related? The 3 of those specifics come straightforward from the single page application. It's JavaScript based frontend, no reloads, meaning that the page is loaded just once per session, and client-side rendering. The ones that come from GraphQL is asynchronous data loading. As you might remember, I've said that GraphQL can request data from the multiple sources, and it's true, and data arrive when you request. That's the expected outcome after all. But the thing is that it could take different amount of time for those data chunks to arrive. So if you are requesting some user data and, for example, product data, it could be that those will arrive at 2 different times. Even though they will arrive, difference in time could be around a second or less. Still, they will arrive in 2 different chunks. And progressive web app related is extensive caching, as we have those service forkers, and we have an option to cache data, files, etc. in order to save cellular network data. Why not to do that? So now we will quickly go through the analytic setup options that we've considered and we're thinking about. I'll be speaking about Google Analytics, but pretty much those options are applicable to whatever tracking solution you are planning to use. Once we discuss the options, we will proceed with the issues that we've encountered with the setup. So first of all, we were thinking which analytics to use, right? Because lately there is a whole variety of those. Three main options for Google Analytics Web, Google Analytics App and Web, which is in beta currently, and the Firebase Analytics, which is primarily designed for the apps. So Google Analytics Web, well, it's kind of classics. Most of the merchants are using it with enhanced e-commerce or without. Pretty handy tool. The thing is that a lot of people use it. So the benefits of using just web analytics is that everyone is familiar with it. You have extensive guides on it, everyone knows it, everyone was working with it, etc. Google Analytics App and Web. We were thinking that probably as it's progressive web app, we could take a look in something more app specific until we've been told by developers that like stop thinking of it as an app, because progressive web app, even though it's called app, in fact is just a different website, different from what we've experienced previously. So still we have considered Google Analytics App and Web due to the option to export data to the BigQuery, as far as I recall, and Google provides you with the free export of the raw data, which is nice. And the third one was Firebase. It has some additional functionality, like it allows you to have push notifications, but all in all, we didn't, as it's much different from both Google Analytics App and Web and just Google Analytics for Web. Firebase has the whole different front end. It has some additional functionality though, but from most of our clients, nobody has really have experience with the Firebase, and the additional options which Firebase provides to us as marketers are kind of negligible, and you can always ask to developers to replicate these perks of Firebase. It does not require tons of resource, so Firebase we did drop out Firebase of our option list pretty fast. We were thinking about Google Analytics App and Web, but again, we came to the conclusion that even though it's kind of same Google Analytics, most of our clients, they do not like to go in depth into understanding how to work with it. They just want to open it and see the report. And we always try to provide our clients with some easy to access and understand data. So Google Analytics, even though it provides access to the raw data, it's not an option for, let's call it mass market, right? So we went with classics Google Analytics Web with enhanced eCommerce. How to implement? Again, I'll be speaking about analytics, but it will work for whatever JS-based tracking solution, which is pretty much any solution. So as always, you have some classics like Google Tag Manager and dataLayer. As usual, you load dataLayer, you load GTM snippet, push data to the dataLayer. GTM works with data further as usual. React module, as our front end is React based. There are some already there are some developed modules for Google Analytics and Facebook, etc., etc. So you can install the module. And the third one is, I guess, the most how should I say, most resource intensive option is HTTP request protocol. Right, and well, I was thinking about like when you should really, when you would really like to use the HTTP protocol version, but there are two extreme scenarios. First, it's when you really chasing the page speed optimization, like to the extreme, so you don't want to load scripts, etc., or when you need to send data, for example, from backend, when you cannot use the other options listed. So HTTP request protocol, it's kind of was the kind of extreme option. Right. So speaking of benefits and drawbacks of all those solutions, spoiler alert, we've decided to go with the GTM and dataLayer. The benefits are that GTM and dataLayer, as always, are most flexible and probably most resource efficient setup. The thing with our PWA is with single page application is that the page load happens just once per session. Probably most of you have heard from developers that the tracking script decreased page loading speeds, etc., which is true. However, given that the single page application has just one page load, it means that your Google Tag Manager container and tracking scripts basically are loaded just once per session instead of loading on each page on the regular website. Additionally, Google Tag Manager has some handy built-in auto event listeners, which will help you with your single page application tracking. The drawback is that our front end is based on the JavaScript, right? And Google Tag Manager is based on the JavaScript. And tracking scripts that Google Tag Manager loads are based on the JavaScript. So there is an issue when user first time visits the page and it needs to download all the stuff and page starts rendering and GTM and tracking scripts are executed. It could be that some of the low tier device will get loaded with the processing. But there is a solution for that. I'll tell you later about. React module. Well, as I mentioned previously, as there is no page reloads, you load GTM just once per session. So the benefit of the React module basically is that you don't need to load Google Tag Manager, which, given the fact that you load it just per session, those benefits are very small. The drawback is that, again, same as the Google Tag Manager, when tracking scripts are loaded, they are JS based, and again, front end loads at the same time, tracking scripts loads at the same time, and it results in the load on low tier devices, which they struggle to handle. Additionally, additional drawback is that setup is not flexible. So each time you want to change something or update or add new script, basically you need additional React module and developers to do everything. So kind of not a lot of benefits, while there is a lot of drawbacks. And HTTP request protocol, in this case, if you are planning to use HTTP request protocol, while you are not loading nor GTM nor tracking scripts, which save you some time probably on the first page load. Again, there is only just one page load through the whole session. And the drawbacks is that, again, you need developers. Additional drawback is that it's harder to QA HTTP request protocols, because if you have some Google Analytics implemented through GTM or through React module, you always can open up the GA debugger, for example, and see which data are sent. When you're working with HTTP request protocol, when QAing your tracking setup, basically you'll just need to dig into this HTTP request, which is I'm personally not very comfortable with. It takes a lot of time, and probably this time is basically wasted. And again, you'll need to have developers to implement this, update, etc., etc. So a lot of hassle, and therefore we decided to go again with kind of classics, GTM, and dataLayer. So issues that we have encountered with those. Let's break it down. First, JavaScript based frontend. The first issue with that is which tracking scripts or tracking solutions you'll be using at your website. Probably you'll need to make some changes to your tracking solution stack, so they would work well with the JavaScript based frontend. Like, for example, tools for heat map, click map, and session recording tools, and A/B testing tools. The thing is that not all of those can render or work with the single page applications. Solution is fairly simple. Probably there are kind of two options. If option number one, preferred one, it's when your tracking solution does support React, or most likely has a specific version of the script for React websites, like A/B testing tools like Chameleon, or, for example, Hotjar. As far as I know, they have the React specific versions of their tracking scripts, which is great. If not, then probably you'll need to think in advance that you will need to change your stack. Additionally, would like to mention that it's not always listed on the service provider websites that they have some support for progressive web apps, etc., etc. And it could be, and we have encountered such cases when they have some in beta scripts that you can ask from them. So those are just betas and not officially released, but that's okay. So do not hesitate to contact your tracking solution provider. No reloads. So if you are using GTM, most likely, I mean, for sure, you have encountered such thing as page view trigger. With single page application, as there is no page reloads and page load happens just once per session, as you probably already learned, the page view trigger will work just once per session. Additionally, the data layer is not emptied on every page load. You can guess why, because there is no page loads, which is pretty logical. The solution to those issues is that Google, first of all, page view trigger. We at ScandiWeb, we developed our own dataLayer and GTM extensions for the Magento and for our PWA team. So we've developed we've added one additional dataLayer push to the Google Analytics enhanced e-commerce set of pushes. We've called it general. It happens on each screen view or page view in a regular website, and there we keep our user and page data like user ID, cart data, some page type data, etc. However, as I mentioned previously, Google Tag Manager has some auto event listeners, and thanks to Google, they have such thing as history change. So basically, Google Tag Manager is able to is able to see when the page URL changes. So even if though there is no page reload, right? In our single page application, as it's opened in a web browser, there is a URL. So therefore, when users are going from the screen to screen, URL changes, history change trigger is been able to capture those, and we use those. You can use this one for your page view tags. Regarding the data layer, on the regular website, when each page loads, data layer becomes emptied and populated with new values. In the single page application, those pushes are stacked. So by the end of the session, you can get like hundreds of data layer pushes that occurred during the session. Sometimes data which are in those pushes are overridden. Like for example, you click on one product and then you click on another product. First product data will be overridden with the second product data, but it can occur that data are not overridden fully. So therefore, in the data layer, you can get the whole mix of data coming from the different pages. Solution to that to this is that in the GTM, probably you've all seen but never used when you create variables, specifically data layer variables, there is an option to choose data layer version. Previously, I personally just was I was Googling what it is and why is there at all. But when I started working with single page applications, it appears that this data layer version selector works well for those. So usually you have version 2, which makes Google Tag Manager to retrieve all the data that are in the data layer at the moment. However, for the single page application, probably for some of the variables, you would like to choose version 1 of the data layer. It's when the Tag Manager accesses just the last data that were pushed to the data layer. So, client-side rendering. As the content is dynamically updated on the user side, it could happen. And for now, the only option when we've encountered this issue is on the first page load, when basically the whole page should be rendered by the device. And the issue is that as the GTM loads and executes itself, as the front end is rendered all on the JavaScript, it provides big load on the low tier devices. So the outcome was that on the low tier devices, it did take ages for the page to load. The solution to this is fairly easy. Again, we did some tests and did find out that if we introduce some half a second delay between start of the front-end rendering and GTM load, then we load both front-end and GTM faster than if we would in case if both of those would be loaded simultaneously. After our data quality assurance, we found out that this half a second delay did not result in any significant data quality loss or something. But don't take my words for granted. And if you're planning to have a single page application and use GTM, please do some load testing on your side. Maybe you can introduce, maybe you'll need a lower or higher delay. That's just us who used half a second delay. So some of the issues come from the GraphQL. As I mentioned previously, it can be that when you are requesting data from different data sources, those arrive at different times. So what the issues that we've seen with GraphQL, first of all, how should I say it? It was sort of URL and page title flickering. So for example, you've opened the home page, you went to the category page, and then you see that the URL is correct. But for example, page name is still home page because the data did not arrive. What it does, first of all, as a result, you can see increase in unique page views, because Google Analytics counts unique page view as unique combination of URL and title. If you will have mismatches between URL and titles, therefore you can get a higher number of unique pages. Additionally, it's in fact, I was pretty shocked when I saw it myself. It's increasing the number of sessions. So imagine you open Google Analytics, you go to your real-time graphics stats, and then you see that suddenly your website, on the website, there is like 2, 3, 4 times more sessions than it should be. And this again happens due to mismatches in page URL and page title, as it appeared that Google Analytics identifies session by the combination of the URLs and page titles that occurs on the website. Additionally, if you are using dataLayer, it's likely that you would like to have some data in there. And it could be that if you are requesting data from the different sources, the probably most common occurrence is that when you want to get some user data and product data, an example for in checkout, and those things are stored in different tables or different sources. So if you want to push those data to the data layer at the same together, you can find out that in some cases part of the data could be undefined, even though developers implemented everything correctly. So solutions for the URL and title mismatch, probably the thing that you should do is QA. QA and push developers so those URL and titles were consistent. Regarding those asynchronous data loading for the data layer, an example, in some cases when we request data from the multiple sources, we were pushed to introduce a waiting mode. So basically data layer push waits for all data to arrive before pushing those to the data layer and further in GTM. And the most interesting one, as per me, was extensive caching from PWA. Right, so as you would like to work as PWA allows you to go offline. One of the things for the offline that you would like to do is to cache as much of your website resources as possible. So if user is offline and opens your website, most of the website would get loaded. So therefore, the caching algorithms are pretty aggressive, and we were getting some errors in console when we were QAing our tracking setup, and basically the issue was that our Google Tag Manager was just not loading, and it appeared that PWA it does cache tracking scripts as well, and when those tracking scripts are being executed, those come back from cache as a some sort of HTML format, and which cannot be executed. So solution is pretty simple. You'll need to whitelist your tracking solutions as GoogleAnalytics.com, Facebook.com, etc., etc. You need to whitelist those from caching. So standalone mode, right? As I mentioned, the PWA simulates the native. It kind of simulates the native app behavior, and one of the things it does is an ability to be added to the home screen. So you enter the website. If you probably, as far as I remember, by default, when you visit PWA website twice on Google Chrome automatically suggests you to add the website to the home screen. And when you launch the website on the home screen, the difference from the browser is that you will not have Google Chrome settings. You don't have the URL bar. Basically, your whole screen is just your website, which is nice. However, you would probably, as it's one of the great features of PWA, probably you would like to track users that add your application, add your website to the home screen. And issue with that we were arguing with our developers that we need to track it, and developers said that we don't want to waste our time on implementing additional tracking, etc., etc. So there is elegant solution. If you want to track if users are using your progressive web applications right from the home screen, when user launches your website from the home screen, it has some unique attributes by which you can identify that it was opened from the home screen. The attribute is called standalone mode, and basically, if you're using Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, we strongly suggest you to set up a custom JavaScript variable, which will be testing if the website display mode is standalone, and if it is, set it as custom dimension to the Google Analytics stack. So later on in Google Analytics, you'll be able to segment the sessions that happen on the website in a browser and in a website that's open from the home screen. So I guess that's about it. And now to the analysis caveats and some insights. So there is not much of a caveats. First, most obvious one is you cannot trust your Google Analytics page loading speed data, as there is no page loading in the classical way. However, you still can take a look into the Google Analytics reports if you want to see some server response times, etc. And the second one is not so obvious, which comes from the progressive web app. The thing is that when you progressive web app behavior differs from between Safari and Chrome. So when you add the progressive web app to your home screen via Google Chrome browser and open the progressive web app from the home screen via Chrome browser, the app is not opened by the Chrome browser, but it's opened by the in-app version. The same browser which opens when you click on some links in the native applications. So the same holds true for the Safari browser. When you open apps from the home screen, those will be opened with the Safari in-app browser. The difference between Chrome and Safari is that Google Chrome shares cookies between the web browser and in-app browser, and Safari does not share cookies between Safari and Safari in-app browser. So basically, for the Chrome users, or if users, it doesn't matter if user use your website in the regular browser or in-app browser, those will be identified as the same users across those two browsers. However, if you're looking at the Safari browsers, the users which opened your website from the home screen will be counted as a new ones. Just to keep in mind. So, some insights and possible explanations. So regarding the single page application, as it improves user experience, etc., we were expecting to see an increase in engagement, and that's exactly what happened. On average, we saw a decrease for around 10-15% in bounce rates, a huge increase in the number of pages per sessions. For some of our clients, the number of pages per session rose more than 150%, which is incredible. I cannot say that SPA is a recipe for everything, because all of our clients had some major redesigns occurring when they migrated to ScandiPWA, but still the pattern is clear that single page applications increase the engagement a lot. Contrary to the number of page per session duration in fact can go down, which is very interesting, and probably the explanation that we have came up is that as the content of the page is rendered dynamically, the whole page is not getting downloaded, so users can interact with it much more faster. And due to this huge increase in page loadings, actually user can see more pages in the same or less time that he would do on the regular website. And regarding e-commerce conversion rate, same pattern also worked here, as probably if you see that users are viewing more pages and are more engaged, you would expect them to buy more, which is true. Well, we can say for sure that single page application has resulted in the significant increase in the e-commerce conversion rate, although the increase is not that big as for the number of pages per session. And the other interesting thing, I was comparing data of PWA opened in the regular browser and PWAs which are open from the home screen. And it's not surprising that stats that I've mentioned, findings that I've mentioned on the previous slide hold here as well. And if we compare the single page applications opened in the regular browser and compare it to the SPA opened from the home screen, we'll find out that the users which opened it from the home screen have even lower bounce rates. In fact, around twice lower if compared to the opening in the regular browser. Again, it had more significantly more twice or even a bit more than twice pages per session, and they had twice as long twice as long session duration. Again, for the e-commerce, it also e-commerce conversion rate did go up, and it increased like around 1.5 to 2 times if we compare the opening from the home screens and the opening in the web browser. And explanation again is fairly simple. It's that when you open the PWA from the home screen, you don't have those URL bars and settings, etc., etc. So it's kind of full native app experience. Right. Guess that's it for today. You can drop me an email on igorsu@ScandiPWA if you're interested in some in-depth some additional commentaries, or to marketing@ScandiPWA.com. Caroline, do we have any questions? Nope. So no questions from your side. Stop here. Guess I'll end the presentation here. So right, marketing.com. So right, here is an email where you can send your questions to. Just in case, we'll go through them and send to you all later on. Regarding the downloadable version, yes, we are recording the webinar and we'll put it online on YouTube probably in the next couple of days. Yeah, and of course, we'll send you an email together with the answer to the questions regarding the presentations. If you're interested in, probably we can attach it as well. Yes, not a problem. So, any other questions while we're here? If not, then probably we will end this seminar. Let's just wait a couple more seconds. Maybe someone is writing or not, because I don't see if you're writing there, except for the send messages.
So yeah, we will share information.
Right. Yeah, so basically, thank you for your attention. Thank you for attending the seminar. Now we will prepare the emails, upload video, etc. And probably tomorrow or on Friday, we'll send you a follow-up email with the materials. And in case if you will get some questions, don't hesitate to drop us a message or an email, and we will answer those in the follow-up email. Or you can ask those questions now, which you are not doing, so probably you don't have any questions. So Then we'll see you on the email probably. And once again, bye and have a good time of the day because we have an evening now. Okay, so bye.